ladies and gentlemen. I am tasked to speak before academics and practitioners, and I'm very nervous, especially seeing Peter Villen, the National Director for Indian Children, and Dr. Manny. Anyway, I'm tasked to speak at a very unholy hour in the afternoon, and I hope you can bear with me by sticking your eyeballs up. And if you somehow have problems with, if you feel sleepy, I'll give you cautions so that you can click your eyes once in a while. The title of my paper is Combating Poverty, the Role of NGOs in Poverty Reduction in Bohol, Philippines. And at the outset, I would like to thank Ford Foundation National Fellowships Program, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation of the who funded this research and funded the presentation of the paper in Switzerland, in Lucerne at the end of 2023. And also the London School of Economics and Political Science, for where I graduated my MSc in Development Studies, and who gave me the academic guidance in finishing this paper. Okay, so currently, this paper was presented in the 3rd International Congress for Community Development in Lucerne in Switzerland. And the paper is also published by the Lucerne University of Applied Sciences in the book Community Development, Local and Global Challenges, which came out in May 2008. The structure of the paper is this. I would like to talk about poverty reduction very briefly, citizen participation and NGOs, and concentrate more on the NGOs' role in poverty reduction, more particularly in the Philippines, and more particularly in Bohol. Biglang Bisaya, And I would like to interrogate the role of NGOs in this community development process and offer some concluding remarks. Okay. Well, poverty is undoubtedly a global issue. However, the global attention on poverty as an overarching goal in development is only a recent realization caused by the shifts in development thinking and practice. In 2000, we know that the world leaders endorsed the Millennium Development Goals, which sets to have poverty among other goals, to have poverty in 2015. Okay. Almost at the same time as the global call to eradicate poverty was announced in development thinking and practice, there's also its significant steps have been made in the context of decentralization. And as an effect, two major trends are affecting the political space of developing countries. One is the gigantic challenge to reduce poverty, and the other is to the downright decentralization of governance in line with the democratization discourse. Next, please. And I would like to locate decentralization in the context also of citizen participation, more particularly in the Philippines, because the decentralization process requires higher and greater involvement of citizens in governance. And finally, talk about that using non-governmental organizations as a modality for participating in global governance. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we know that in the Philippines, the concept of citizen participation became prominent in development discourse after the collapse of the Marcos dictatorship and the promulgation of the 1987 Constitution. More importantly, citizen participation in local context advanced greatly with the decentralization reform, which was introduced in the passage of the Local Government Code. Okay, the LGC highlighted an avenue in which the citizen, the ordinary citizen, can participate in local development, which is through the legally mandated active partnership with non-government organizations. When the local government was implemented in, at that time, it has its full implementation, over 16,000 NGOs in the country were accredited for membership in local special bodies. And since then, NGOs are said to have been very active in local development, more particularly in the areas of health, education, peace and order, and procurement processes. This is not without objection and critique. There are a lot of academic writers are saying that, for example, in the Philippines, for example, NGO participation are dubious and are made as rubber stamps in some cases. And they're limited because of some political roadblocks. And somehow there's a sense of token recognition where there is intentional and unintentional bureaucratic and political hindrances that happen. Others are also hinting on the lack of skills of NGOs to participate significantly in national development processes. Okay. That's the Philippines. And then the next slide that's Bohol. That's where I come from. And then, yeah, that's a greater application. Bohol has 3 districts. Has 3 districts. Tagbilaran City, the capital, is situated here near the island of what is that? Southwest. Southwest location of the province. And what is intriguing in Bohol, because next click, please. It's one of the 20 poorest provinces in the Philippines in 2001, and it embarked on a poverty reduction program as a response. And 2 to 3 years after, there's a decreased poverty incidence in 2003, and the same kind of achievement is reported in 2005. That Galipo Foundation cited Bohol as they call it a Hall of Famer in terms of local development and local governance, more particularly its Bohol Peace and Poverty Reduction Program. So I asked a question, because the government would claim, it's the government that made it, because the government implemented this poverty reduction program. But in my thesis, which is the larger paper of this paper, I said that there are alternative explanations why poverty decreased. One of it is the presence or absence of NGOs, which I will talk about later on. Okay, so this is the NGO community in Bohol in terms of profiling. A lot of them are working on livelihood development, health and education, housing and environment, and some on the others, housing and others on the environment. When you talk about classification as to the nature of their stay in the province, they're more of strategic rather than operational. By operational, we mean those people who would like to go to the province and just implement projects. Strategic in the sense of those that are having long-term engagements with the communities. And most of these NGOs are local by scope. Only around 36% is national, and around 58% is, 6% is regional by nature. And then in terms of nature, in terms of affiliation, most of them are primary NGOs. Most of them are affiliated. Yes, primary. Sorry. Most of them are primary NGOs, while others are affiliated. Meaning to say they have national offices in Manila, for example. Okay. So, what is the implication of that? What does that mean? Huh? What do all those things mean? It tells us that NGOs in Bohol are more of strategic, more local, and more primary, and with interventions focused largely on livelihood development. This has certain implications. For example, the fact that most of the NGOs in the province are strategic posits a positive implication on development processes, since these NGOs are expected to continue becoming partners with the local government, the communities, and the people for expectedly a longer period of time. And secondly, most of these NGOs are primary, so there's a positive implication also because the NGO's ability to understand local context may indicate the relevance of their interventions against needs. However, it also points to the fact that there might be problems in fund sources because they rely on proposals to be able to access funding. And finally, if NGOs are more on the nature of the livelihood development, this has favorable effect on the poverty reduction initiatives because livelihood development is a more proactive and a more sustainable way of dealing with the issue of poverty alleviation. Okay. But NGOs in the province are more of project implementers rather than local development planners. So they don't have much voice in local development processes except their membership in local special bodies. Though they exercise a certain degree of clout to an extent. I used Fabro's typology of involvement. So she talked practically about outside, alongside, inside as patterns of interaction between LGUs and NGOs. In the case of Bohol, for example, when I review the patterns of engagement with local governments, more particularly in the discourse of poverty reduction, it can be said that the terms of engagement are within the range of outside to alongside. For example, there were instances when NGO engagements were of competitive nature, more particularly when an environment consortium opposed a reclamation project. Or there were also instances wherein the nature of engagement is alongside, meaning, for example, in the case of water projects wherein the NGOs work in direct coordination with the local government units. However, this typology developed by Fabro somehow failed to capture another phenomenon in Bohol, which is non-engagement, where information sharing and exchange never happened and interaction did not occur. For example, the poverty reduction program organized a cooperative in a particular barangay where an NGO is also organizing another cooperative, creating conflicts of interest and competitions between members and also product buyers of these, the products of these cooperatives. Okay, so I'd like to talk about the performance and non-performance of roads. This is the NSCP, but World Bank funded poverty map of the province. If you can see, this is Tagbilaran, the political capital, the political, economic, and social capital of the province. And if you can see there, poverty becomes more pronounced as you go east. So, because the poverty incidence near Tagbilaran is between 0 to 25, while the poverty incidence to the east of the capital is much more pronounced. And interestingly, if you map out the presence of NGOs, the NGOs are working here for a lot of reasons. Administrative costs. So administrative costs are high if you go there to the far-flung municipalities. And all of the banks are located, most of the banks actually, 98% of the banks are located here. So for administrative feasibility, it's much more easier to implement projects along them. Okay. So if you think of this as a graphical presentation of poverty vis-a-vis presence, you can see that the NGOs are really working towards poverty reduction in areas where they are serving. But in essence also, conversely, there's what you call as a peripheralization of the other municipalities where they are not operating. So somehow the needs of these municipalities are not also addressed. Okay, I have 5 minutes, so let's take a look at distance from Tagbilaran and NGO presence. So you can click in. So you see, the farther you get from Tagbilaran, the lesser your NGO presence. It's between rare or none at all. Okay. I'd like to deal with some critiques on NGOs. First, as NGOs replacing the state. This is not my critique, but this is a critique provided by, what's that guy? By Fisher in 1997, also put by Collier in 2000, by James Putzel in 2004, and by Kamat also in 2004. And I'd like to test this in the context of Bohol. So if you take a look at that, NGOs are spending more than governments in terms of the delivery of basic social services. So somehow there's a sense, when I analyze the panel data for the municipalities, you can actually see that when the NGOs are there for a particular set of interventions, the LGUs will no longer fund that. So in a sense, the LGUs are somehow passing on to the NGOs the responsibility of providing basic social services, which should not have been the case. Also, this table will tell you that NGOs also are budgeting really more than that of the government. You can see, for example, the poorest municipality. This is an island municipality. The LGU is, for example, budgeting a lot for health and livelihood development. Because this is also a problem of access. Because in this island, the NGOs are not going there. But in all of the aspects, the NGOs somehow spend more than that of the LGUs. These are expressed in British pounds. Next piece. There's also a critique that NGOs exist for themselves. So I looked at their profile of expenses. Administrative expenses accounts for 171 million, while project expenses account for 171 million, and administrative expenses accounts for 191. Pointing to the fact, to the direction that somehow, if you can get projects implemented in the areas, then you will not have money to run your NGO. So they say that NGOs help themselves by helping the poor. If you take a look at that data, somehow it provides you with some kind of a conclusion along the line. Finally, there are critiques that NGOs are doing more harm than good. This is what Collier said in 2000. And because he said that NGOs displaces local resiliency, it creates dependency, it reproduces structures that cause poverty. There's somehow a relative degree of high presence, there's a relative degree of high relative degree of truth in these critiques. Because, for example, there's one NGO that in Bohol, for example, that somehow provides everything that the household needs, from the roof to the ceiling to school supplies to other things. So, and somehow local structures for resiliency are being affected very, very greatly. Okay. So I would like to say that NGOs have contributed significantly to the progress of the province, as the data have shown. But NGOs need to consider criticisms for self-reflection. And there's a need to look into consequentialist versus deontologist frameworks. Like the goodness of an act relies on the act in itself, or the goodness of an act is relative to its effect. And I would like to read my conclusion, if I can have 1 more minute. I said here that to do good, giving food to a child, treating the sick, providing potable water, training people for improved livelihood is oftentimes considered unassailable. But it can always be argued that good actions do not necessarily bring good results, and the goodness of an act is not intrinsic in itself, as contended by the ontologists, but it is dependent on the result that the behavior generates, as argued by the consequentialists. This is particularly true in the stark context of humanitarian assistance, as said by Spring in 1997. In scrutinizing the role of NGOs in poverty reduction in Bohol or elsewhere, this frame of analysis may be important, even when they are largely used in development literature and complex emergencies. This paper argues that what NGOs have done in the province were essentially good, but they may not have yet yielded good results altogether. So there's a need for a more nuanced frame in understanding development work, in order that NGOs do not help in reproducing the same structures and institutions that cause rather than eradicate poverty. Thank you very much.